what does the word gutsy mean to you?
Mm. For me, gutsy now means the allowance of it all that I desire. Because it's so easy for us to make those like comfortable choices and to settle. And gutsy to me is having the willingness, the excitement, that feeling inside yourself of like, if I desire it, it desires me, and I get to have it. I get to do it. I get to be it. And having the guts to go for it, having the guts to say it, having the guts to make an action, having the guts to tell someone else about it, to, for a lot of us solopreneurs, tell the internet about it, identify who we are and what we have and our magic, and aligning with it, like truly embodying it, standing behind it, and taking those intentional risks. That's what gutsy means to me. Intentional risk taking, because our human world has taught us that like what we want is like out there and is too much and like is maybe not for everybody, but like when you really think about it, when you really connect with it, it's for each of us, but it takes a little bit of guts.
You're listening to the Gutsy Podcast, where we talk about all things real, raw, and ridiculous about running a business authentically. Whether you need an inspirational pick-me-up or a swift kick in the mental ass, the Gutsy Podcast is your bi-weekly guide to getting out of your head and back into action. I'm Laura Ora, branding and mindset coach for female entrepreneurs, CEO of Works & Co., and your host on this journey through entrepreneurship. It's time to fuel your gutsy. You've likely heard about the quantum field or quantum leaping, and while it feels interesting, it also feels like complicated science stuff that you have to have a PhD to understand. The great news is, it's actually substantially easier and more accessible than what it seems. Today, Lindsay Schroeder is simplifying the shiznit out of the quantum by explaining what it truly is, how transformative it can be in your life, and just how easy it is to access at any given moment. Lindsay is a spiritual wellness and intuitive business coach. She's also a medicine woman and priestess. She supports soulpreneurs and spiritually curious beings in developing their intuition, reprogramming their paradigm, accessing their alignment, and upleveling their lives and businesses. Before we chat with Lindsay, I just want to plant a little seed in your brain to let you know that the next Mindfuckery workshop, that's right, you heard it, it is back and ready for you, runs the last week of February 26th through March 1st. This is one of my favorite things to teach because in a 5-day span, I have literally watched human beings transform, open up, find the most clarity humanly possible, and take the first steps to begin transforming their life and business. I mean, it is nothing short of mind-blowing every single time. While registration isn't quite open yet, the waiting list is. So if you are ready to jump on the Mindfuckery bandwagon, go to lauraora.com. There's a banner at the top of the page. Click on join the waitlist. I'll grab your email and I'll make sure that you get the first dibs on registration, as well as maybe perhaps some coupon codes as well. Back to today, Lindsay is hands down one of my favorite guests, so much that she is back, and I'm excited for you to tune in. So let's get into today's episode. My sweet friend Lindsay, welcome back to the Gutsy Podcast.
Thank you for having me again. I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I get to have so many incredible conversations with so many wonderful people, but there's always just a few that really just stick with you. And your episode is one of them. So in case anyone's not familiar, episode 98, Lindsay and I had an incredible conversation about energy and business, right? The practical and the energetic side of things. And that episode just always has rung so true and beautifully to me. So thank you for being part of that conversation. And then now today.
Yeah. And I know before we started recording, I was telling you, like, to get into the vibration, I was like listening to our old podcast episode, and I just got this beautiful imagery of like walking down this stone path of like the beautiful world that you've created, and like seeing our little signpost and getting to like spend time in that, and like the beautiful, like coming full circle of where I was at that point and where I am at this point, and how like you really just like can't make up the synchronicities of the two, that there's so much unison and like so much quantum magic associated with that time. Like that version of me kind of like jumped up into this version of me and was like, oh, that's where we're going. That's so excited. And like I really do feel like that version of me allowed me to get here because of this. Like everything is happening all at the same time. Like if we're technically talking about time, and since we're talking quantum, we can get a little nerdy, that like time is non-linear. And so it's all like up and down instead of like in front of you and behind you. And I'm like, that version of me and this version of me are so connected. And I can see that version of me manifesting this version of me, like through that moment and through the affirmations of that work that we did in that recording.
Oh, I love that. I love that it's not in front of or behind you, but it's up and down, right? It's this I kind of just got this visual of this elevator, right? Where we're going up and we're getting what we need and then we're grounding it back down in and we're using it in what we're in our present day selves. And it's just this continuous evolution of self. And what I really truly believe is getting back to ourself, being
Yeah.
more of ourself, right?
My favorite aspect of that too is like you're saying, like going up into the elevator and then grounding it down. The idea that like we are able to shift into different realities, shift into different timelines. And you know, those moments where you're like, this is not my best version of self. The moments where you're down, the moments where you're like, you don't have it together, the moments where you're like, I spilled coffee on myself and then I stubbed my toe. And like all of these things are just difficult. Knowing that you can just go up into a different version, and it doesn't have to take a day, a week, a month, a year, that you can just like be a different version of yourself with a quick shift, with a practice. That's been the like most expansive aspect of quantum understanding for me, that like in any moment where you just feel like, oh, this is not my best version of self, and like I don't desire that, that moment, if you allow yourself to be aware and choose differently, be differently, you can. And like we can shift so fast. And we've all seen that happen, like where you're not having a great day and then your best friend is like, oh, I can actually come to that thing. And you're like, oh, everything's okay now. I'm like, I'm so happy. Or like, you know, you go to the coffee place and they're like, oh, we made an extra, like, here, take that. And you're like, okay. And like you walk out of the cafe being like, oh my God, like everything's working out for me. Even though you have a coffee stain from the office on your, and your shoes don't match, it doesn't matter those other things. When one thing shifts you, if you choose to lean into that, if you choose to be that, or if that just like naturally happens because it's that perfect little thing, like when it's that perfect coffee, or for me, like when my best friend can come or like make it or like is there, I'm like, that changes my entire vibration. And that I use those moments to go, it is possible to shift instantaneously. All I needed was that one word from her. And I understand that that's outside myself, but I am capable of doing that inside myself. And it's
Mm.
like all of that is just an awareness to bring in and go, I can do that too.
Yeah. So, how do you do that for yourself? Because I think some of those external forces expedite it or make it feel
Yeah.
like it could be easier. But when it's just us sitting with ourselves, gosh, the things can get noisy. So, how do we do that for ourselves?
hmm So, one of my favorite ways to do this for me, and the reason that I say that is that, like in our last episode, it's not just about here's the prescription, here's the formula, but it's about digesting it for yourself. And so with my clients, I'm like, let's make a list for you that shifts you, so that in your phone that you're always carrying with you, you have a list of like, these are instantaneous shifts for me that always work. And then you can have a list of things that you're trying or practicing or might work, and use those in the like little times. But in those moments where you really need it, like you've had a difficult morning and you have a pitch meeting to go to, or your kid is sick and you really need to show up and you're just like lagging, what are the things that always work? And I personally like to put them in time frames, so that I have a list of like under 5 minutes, and then the like 5 minutes to like 15, 20 minutes, and then the like long practice. And I'm like, here's my list that's going to shift me, that's like almost instantaneous, under 5 minutes. And I know if I do this thing or watch this thing or look at this thing or listen to this thing, I'm in a different vibe. And then I got a little bit more time and then okay, I have a whole practice. Like I have half a day before the thing that I want to do, or maybe you have a recording later and you're like, I'm not in my biggest brightest and you have time. You can go to this list. And I'm going to tell you guys one of my quick ones and it's really funny because it's like, oh my God, you're a spiritual teacher, but like this is what shifts you. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kristen Bell, the beautiful actress and songstress, but there was a time when her husband Dax brought her a sloth to her birthday party. And she's on the Ellen show talking about this experience of like her husband telling her, I'm going to get you a present that no one's ever gotten before for your birthday. And she literally like loses her shit. And she's like, I'm shaking, I'm crying. Like I needed to be sedated. And she knew it was a sloth. Like she knew without any understanding. She's like, and her little hands, like I could basically do the whole thing. And it's maybe a 5 minute, 3 minute video, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, if I am not in a great space and I take 3 to 5 minutes to watch that K-Bell video where she's freaking out about the sloth and she's crying. She's like almost comatose of like overwhelmed with excitement that a sloth is coming to her house and to her birthday party. And like, it's so real and it's so raw. And it's just like, the way I experience euphoria, and she just bottles it up in the tiny little blonde happy girl in like 3 minutes. If I watch that, I completely shift my vibration. And I love to use that example because I do have so many spiritual practices that do that. I could talk to you guys about, a beautiful plant medicine called Hape and this practice, but I love to ground it down first and foremost with like, this is capable, all of us can do this. And it can be a meme. And I know that sounds ridiculous, guys, but you know that there's that one thing that like your brother or sister sent you or your best friend sent you or you stumbled across and you're like, oh my God, that's the funniest, happiest, most aligned, most real thing I've ever seen. And it shifts you. All of a sudden you're like, I'm just in a different space. And Kristen Bell in the sloth video is that for me. And I have that at the top of my under 5 minute list and it has the link right there. And if I am being a like grouchy or when I get hot, I'm not good with heat. If I'm hot and I'm watching Kristen Bell, I can be okay. And I cannot be heinous. And I'm like, hang on, I just need to sloth me for one more minute and then I'll be okay. But it's things like that, that when you find something that shifts your vibration, when you find something that really works for you, making note of that and reminding yourself, I have shifted fast before. I can do it again. And here's the list. And sometimes just looking at the list allows you to go, oh, you know what? I actually want to do this thing. So I have like a little breath work practice on there. I update it with my favorite mantra at the time. I have a link for like my mentors, like my favorite song that she's ever sung. And they're all right here. So that when I am dysregulated, when I'm unhappy, or when I need to do a fast turnaround of like someone's canceled and they want to update and I have to shift this and do these things. And like I get overwhelmed that I'm like, okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes and I'm going to do something that completely changes my vibration. And I'm going to approach that situation as a different version of myself. Because this discombobulated, overwhelmed, very, very human version of me is not the version I want to show up with. So what thing are we going to? And it depends on like what style or flavor I'm in that's going to be the easiest, the fastest. Because sometimes I am in the space where I'm like, no, a laugh, a good belly laugh would work so much better than like Zen and calm. And other times I'm like, if I could just get back into alignment, like that would do it. And I have them in time frames ready to go so that if I'm not in a space to like open up and download what that is and hear that I've got it. I have my little cheat. I have my cliff notes. I have my like fast version of it. And I love supporting my clients and building that out for themselves. And then hearing that first time when they were like, okay, I was in the bathroom at work and I just had a really not great interaction with someone and I had to go into something else and I went in there and I my 5 minute thing and like it worked and it was so efficient and I felt so much better and I was able to truly separate what had happened and show up as the version of myself that I desire to be for that thing, because someone else's stuff a lot of times does not get to keep me from what I desire and who I truly get to be.
Oh, louder from the back. Look, okay, so I have so many things to say about this that I love. First, I love that it's the sloth video that does it for you,
Yeah.
right? Like that just humanizes everything. I think sometimes we think that getting back into alignment or shifting has to be complex or detailed or long and this whole practice, and there's a time and a space for everything like you mentioned. But I love that even just the simplest of human things can be the thing.
Mhm.
Like it does not have to be complicated. I also love the recommendation of the list
Yeah.
because you and I both know that in those moments, our brains go like blank. Like all of a sudden, I
Yes.
forget what works for me, right?
Yeah.
Because you're dysregulated. You've got a million things going on, or something has shifted you out of the way. So just having that list is like a power tool for yourself. It's like a sweet love letter for your future self. Like, hey, I know that you're probably gonna forget at some point, and that's okay, but I have this for you. So
Hmm.
when you get into that space, it's okay. You don't have to remember because I've got it for you.
Yeah.
And I think that that's phenomenal.
And as a child that comes from like, as someone who comes from a background of like childhood trauma and difficulty and abuse, when you are dysregulated, depending on the level with which you have regulated your system or how much trauma you still have stored in your body or vibrational field, when we say I black out, I don't have the cognitive ability to reach for the tools that, like, on a regular day when I'm just like, okay, I have my 20 minutes of practice time. What of this smattering of offerings would I like to lean into? When I am dysregulated, especially before I did a lot of my like inner child, inner teenager, all the ages, healing, it was so dramatic and so much trauma was coming up, especially when I started to heal and I got a little bit safer and then your like body is processing all of this. I really like was not capable of solving and providing myself solutions, but I was capable of opening my phone and looking at that. And so like now it's this beautiful practice that I enjoy and I feel so like confident around, but there were times where like that was really the like life vest. That was really the like lifesaver that was like chucked out to me. And I was like, I do feel like I'm drowning. And I know it sounds crazy, guys, but Kristen Bell has saved me so many times in that drowning moment. Kristen Bell, tiny stallion meltdown, and like these hilarious things. And I'm panicking and I'm sad and I'm feeling the difficulty in my body. And it feels like the time that my dad did. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at one little thing, one little meme of cats are liquid. And I'm like, okay, now I can go to my breath work or my mantra, or now I can like sit in a different way, or now I can like open up, or now I can roll my eyes up. Like now I can reach for something else, but it snaps me out of it. And so often that shift is what we're talking about when we say quantum. This is accessing a beyond three-dimensional capability that you have. We all have the ability to shift reality, shift timelines, shift very beings. We know there's a difference in versions of self. Like, when you show up as your best self or wise self or informed self or aligned self. And when you show up as your dysregulated self, fearful self, avoidant attachment, anxious attachment self. And you're like, wow, I've done so much work to like not be that version, but this setting or this trigger or this person or this situation drops me back into that. How do I go from like, okay, now I'm seventh grade me all the way back to like full aligned me? Those quick shifts and building, like you're saying, that love letter to yourself of like, when you can't, we can. The many previous versions of you are here to show up for the current version of you because we are all one.
Oh, see, everyone listening, this is why I have Lindsay back because of this incredible magic. I think the other powerful thing that you shared too was that sometimes it is the stillness that you need, not the big connection, right? Sometimes it is the big connection and the expansion. Sometimes it's just shaking energy out, right? Like knowing that it's not always one thing that you need and really leaning in and listening to your body and what do I need in this moment? Like I'll share one of my quick things that I love to do in under 5 minutes. I can tell when I start getting really just out of myself when I kind of crunch in. My head gets very, very noisy. My energy like almost completely shuts down. And everything is like worry, right? And I know that about myself. So one of the quickest ways for me to shift out of that is to put on Missy Elliott and literally shake my ass
Yeah.
like so hard that like I'm like I didn't even know that my body could move like that. And I don't care what it looks like because I'm not
Yep.
performing. I am just literally moving. And in a 3.5 minute song,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right, it's go time. Like I'm
Yeah.
back in my zone. All of that funk has shifted out and away from me. But it comes down also to that self accountability
Yeah.
to use your tools,
Yes.
right? It's a choice to use the tool or to keep going in the way that you're going.
Mm-hmm. And putting Missy Elliott on and moving your body is like our last conversation, the marriage of the practical and the energetic. Because, like, practically speaking, shaking is one of the easiest, fastest, most efficient ways to purge cortisol from the body. So, literally, just like hand vibration, leg vibration, or the best vibration, twerking vibration of like, especially as a like uterus owning individual, that like hip movement moves so much stagnation and trauma and difficulty and cortisol out of the body. Plus, the energetic of like really creating a bigger vibrational space for you to take up and be and get into that like embodied movement that feels so juicy and so good. So you're working with the practicality of it and the energetics of it in that 3.5 minute like banger of a song. And also Missy Elliott, just like she brings those vibes back of like, no matter what
Queen.
you look like, no matter who you are, like get it.
Yes, absolutely. Look, 90s rap will forever hold a very sacred part in my soul,
Yep.
period.
Yep.
So you started to allude on it. So, and I'd love to go deeper on the concept of quantum, right? Like we hear it a lot now, which I think is good and also sometimes confusing because you hear it a
Mhm.
lot in a lot of different
Yes.
ways. It seems big and overwhelming and like how do I do it? And I have to have these special tools or tricks, and then there's Ant-Man doing it, and I don't know how he's doing, like it's all these things. So help us understand it in just a more simplistic term.
Yeah. So one of the ways that I really like to talk about the quantum is first like bringing it so back to just like an ability to understand what we mean by other than matter. And so we're so used to looking at the world as matter. We see our physical bodies, we see the computer, the microphone in front of us, the space that we're in, but we are so much empty space. And when we talk about empty space, a lot of times we're thinking, oh, nothingness. And I love to use this example of like a fishbowl to talk about the empty space, that like little bit of air at the top of a fishbowl, underneath the top covering, not the water, not the rocks, not the fish, not the plants, but like that water is empty space, but it's not empty at thing. It's the oxygen that fills that space. And when we think about the emptiness around us, this is air, this is oxygen, this is energy, this is vibration. Start thinking about it at a personal level of like you can feel when someone's looking at you. You can sense when someone else adds to, a space where you and a couple of friends are sitting and talking and someone else walks up and the whole like vibration shifts. We are so much more than just our bodies. We are so much more than just our minds. We are vibration, we are energy, and there's so much empty space, other space in our makeup. And so when we start to consider that open space as availability, as openness, as willingness, as quantum instead of emptiness or nothingness, we start to realize that it's in that openness that we are able to choose, to create, to make magic, and to shift. And so we can bring quantum down from like quantum physics and quantum realities and quantum shifting down to this really practical understanding that all of that openness is the space with which you can offer programming, you can offer intention, and you can actually change yourself, not by changing your physical self, but by changing the vibration, the frequency. And think about this like tuning a radio dial. It's not a physical, tangible thing, but when you turn that radio dial one shift, that song is not as clear. And two or three shifts, all of a sudden you're on a totally different radio station listening to a totally different song. That is what quantum shifting is. That 1 degree shift, 2, 3 degree shifts can bring you to a totally different place. From opera to like classical rock, from pop music to 90s rap. Like these are big differences. How it feels in your body, what kind of dance you would do, what you picture. Those are big shifts. And each of us is that mechanism. We can shift in that way. We can utilize that openness if we set intention, if we know how, if we are like taught a lot of times how to work with that openness, because you're taught how to work with your body, you're taught how to work with your mind. I wish we were taught more how to work with our mind. I wish we were taught more how to work with our body, but we at least get a baseline of like, hey, we can stretch and we can move, and here's how to take care of your body, and here's how to take care of your mind, or like these things. We're not taught from a young age how to take care of our energy, how to take care of our frequency, how to take care of our full self, our total self, our more than just our meat suit and mind self.
Absolutely. We all have it, right?
Yes.
Some are just more in tune or aware of it than others. And so what are some recommendations that you have to start to strengthen that intuition, to strengthen that even knowingness of awareness of your energy? Because
Mm,
so many people are living on autopilot,
yeah.
right? And if you can't shift what you don't notice.
Yes, yes. So that is a great place to start of becoming the conscious observer. What that means is that instead of just being behind your eyes as the first person, can you shift into the awareness of yourself? Because if we think about our thoughts, so if everybody connects with their mind and you connect with your monkey mind, at some point in the next minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, you're going to have a thought that you did not think. And I'm going to say that again. At some point, if you start to pay attention to your mind, you are going to become aware of a thought that you did not consciously think. There is a difference between being aware of something that is in your mind and consciously thinking a thought. So, when something just like pops into your head and you're like, where did that come from? That is the difference between being the conscious creator and working with the technology that is your mind. So when you start to remove yourself and stop identifying with that thought, that feeling, you are the awareness that is experiencing that. It changes the game. So when we start to have anxious thoughts or fearful thoughts or, really like crappy thoughts, we can pull ourselves back from this and start to become the awareness of that thought. And it allows us to be so much bigger than our bodies and so much bigger than our minds. It allows you to have a connection to whatever you believe in. If you believe in a soul, if you believe in a spirit, if you believe that, like, okay, my mind is thinking thoughts, but I'm aware of those thoughts. There's got to be something else. And you don't even need to define it, just that understanding and awareness. So that's a great first step of like, just can you be aware of what you're experiencing? And so we talked a little bit about how to do that with thoughts of like allowing your mind to just kind of quiet and see what shows up and witness the difference between thoughts just popping up and you going, oh, I have to go to the grocery store and thinking intentionally about what things you need to get. That's different than something just kind of happening and being like, oh, did I do that thing? Or did I take that thing? Or like, wow, I haven't heard that song in a while. Thoughts can happen to you where your autopilot, your programming, your paradigm is just spitting it out. And then you can consciously think a thought. So just the like, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true that there are thoughts that I think and thoughts that I can just be aware of. Just that moment is going to help you get into connection with a grander self and will allow you to utilize practices in a different way. So if we're in the position of like, what's this girl talking about? That's the place that I would start. If you already don't have a meditation practice, I would encourage you to just have an awareness practice at first. Sit for a minute with a timer, sit for 5 minutes with a timer. And instead of trying to clear your mind and zen out, just go for this minute or for this 5 minutes. I'm going to be aware of what happens. So you're sitting and you're like, okay, I can hear the air conditioning or I hear people outside. I wonder if that's my neighbor's son. Be aware of those thoughts. Oh, I'm hungry. Oh, I have so much to do. Oh, this would be really cool. I'd love to make more money. Nothingness, 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 double mint gum commercial, like all of these different things that happen. Just the awareness of that and going, wow, I have so many thoughts that I'm not consciously thinking. That means I can pull myself back and stop identifying with them. When I think like, oh, I'm so anxious, you're identifying with, I am anxious. You're making that who you are versus that was an anxious thought. That was fear. That was this. Pulling yourself back from it. So I encourage you to start with just that little practice. And then once you start to develop some awareness, then you can get excited about like, okay, what do I do with this now? And one of my favorite, very quick, very easy practices, because when you're starting, I want you to feel it right away because that's the way we can hook you. That's the way we can get you to go, oh, maybe I could have a little buy-in on this. Maybe it could work like that. Maybe I could do more of that because everyone is intuitive. It's just about developing that skill set. So Sonia Choquette, who is an amazing intuitive teacher and has been doing this for so long, taught me a practice a while ago that is so fast and easy that like brings you to a quiet state of mind and allows you to get to that place where you can download or drop in or, have this white intuition that is connection to your higher self, and where you get those really cool creative ideas and you problem solve in a way that like you can't research, like you can't look up, you can't learn. It's I need to be given this versus like I could study into this. And I can teach it to you so fast, which is so cool. I have a whole training on it that goes into it in much more detail, but we can do it really quick and you can feel that quiet state of mind very easily. So we're going to just take a few moments to relax. I'll encourage you guys to close your eyes. And then we're going to take the tongue and we're going to push this up on the roof of the mouth, kind of right behind the teeth, on that upper palate. And we're going to breathe out as if we're blowing out candles for 3 breaths. So I'll hold up 3 fingers and we'll blow them out like candles while you have your tongue pushed to the roof of the mouth. So let's all try that together. Making sure that tongue is pushed to the roof of the mouth. Now, after our 3 breaths, we're going to drop our tongue from the roof of the mouth and we're going to do what's called riding the slide. So we're going to take our breath in and we're going to make this noise. And you got to actually make the noise. So we're going to do it 2 more times together. Breathing in, riding the slide. One more time. Now, before you open your eyes, just make note of the spaciousness, how you feel in the container of the room or the home or the apartment or the office or the car or the train that you're on. And considering how much quieter your mind is, how much more aligned. And even if you've never worked with quieting the mind or stepping into alignment, how you kind of just sense it and feel it. It is in this state that you are able to allow things to flow into you that a lot of times you think you have to reach for, do for, hustle for. So if you start to build a practice where you regularly go to this space and you clear things out and allow yourself to be an open channel, you will blow your own mind of what comes through. You can also start to add questions before and or after that practice. So asking yourself a question of like, here's a thing I need to solve, or, oh, which order should I do these podcasts? Or like, how do I arrange this day? Or how do I want to navigate that thing? You can state that beforehand, do your practice, and then sit open, available for it. You can also recite that question again once you're in the quiet state of mind and just open yourself up. I also have quite a few clients who just do that with no question and see what comes through for like 5 minutes before they start their workday. And sometimes that's telling them to rearrange things. Sometimes it's giving them this idea of, oh, I haven't talked to so-and-so in so long. I'm going to reach out to that. Or, I should start over here or do this thing. And then listen to it. One little thing, listen to it. And that might mean just writing it down. It might mean taking that quick action. It might mean like making a statement, an affirmation, an availability for that of like, oh, that could work. That's cool. Thank you for that idea. Thank you, higher self, or thank you, guide, or thank you, God, thank you, absolute, whatever it is that you believe in, and affirm that and allow that practice to start to grow for yourself.
Oh, it's so yummy. To further plant maybe a few more seeds about the Mindfuckery Workshop, I wanted to share a few of the reasons why some people have joined the class in the past. Things like, I need to get out of my own way. I'm afraid of making mistakes. I feel like I'm not good enough. Other people do things better than I do. I feel like I know better, but why do I keep doing the same things? I can't seem to break this cycle. This is real shit, my friend. Like, I can imagine that there's at least one of those that made the hair on your ass stand up and be like, yeah, you know what? That sounds familiar to me too. This workshop, it's deep work. I'm not gonna lie to you. We're not just like sitting around singing fucking Kumbaya. Like, we're actually peeling back some layers and everyone's walking around going, holy shit, what did I sign up for? But by the end of the week, when I tell you I've literally seen people transform on camera, it is mind-blowing. So if you're ready to really start like peeling back the layers so that you can move forward, then go to my website, go to lauraora.com. At the top of the page, there is a banner where you can get on the wait list. By getting on the wait list, you're going to be the first to get registration because it is limited. And you may or may not also get first dibs on a coupon code as well. Just saying. I'm telling you, if you've been wanting to make a change and you want to do it alongside some other really great human beings that want to make a change too, this is the way to do it. Lindsay's got some more incredible wisdom to share with you. So let's get into the second half of today's episode.
Mm-hmm. It's so fast. That's why I love that one so much. Because like we're doing 3 breaths and sometimes it's just 1 slide. Sometimes it's 3 slides if you have to like get your voice going. Because some of us have a resistance to using our voices. But that is like seconds, not minutes, but seconds in that practice. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like I feel space in a different way. And that's what we're looking for. That like, ooh, the density of the space that I'm in, the spaciousness that is around me of like, I am so aware of the 4 corners of the room. I'm so aware of the emptiness not being nothingness. That's what we're looking for. That's you connecting to the quantum.
And again, so simple, right? Like you could do this. I mean, you named a half a dozen places. You can literally do this anywhere at any moment in any given time.
Any
Right.
place that you can close your eyes, guys, you can do this. And there are times where I do this practice with my eyes open all the time. So like truly anywhere, anytime, there's a version of this practice. Obviously, if you're driving your car, I don't want you to close your eyes. But making this practice so easy and a go-to of like, I have a question, I'm going to do that first. I have a problem, I'm going to do that first. I have a roadblock, I'm going to do that first. I'm coming up against the same thing. This is a loop for me. I'm in the same lesson, because that's one of my least favorite things of like, one of my favorite affirmations is I learn my lessons on the first go round. So I don't want to be doing that same thing. Like if it's resistance and it's difficult and it's sticky, I don't want to be doing that again and again and again and again. I want to learn that lesson on the first go around and then shift. And then I want to learn another lesson and another lesson. I don't want to be having that same tumultuous relationship. I don't want to be making that same mistake in my business. I don't want to be doing the same lesson over and over because I refuse to look at it. And this practice has really helped me with that because I open up to that which is more than just my human self to give me guidance, to give me that answer. So there's a difference between something that we can find out there on the internet, something that we can research, something that we can accomplish ourselves through studying, and something that needs to be given to us.
Yes. And I can imagine this would be really powerful too in a moment or situation where you feel things kind of getting big around you, right? When you're starting to feel a little chaotic maybe, or pulled in a lot of different directions, or just like not centered in yourself. To me, I mean, that's what immediately came to me when I started doing it. It was like, it's a way to like harness back into yourself so that I can strategically move forward. I can consciously move forward. And from that space, everything gets to be easier.
My favorite use for that, my mentor right now, Mami Onami, explained it to me in this way. And I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. She's like, when there are things that you can like study and research for, like say, for instance, we're designing our website, how to make that banner, how to make that pop up, what colors go together, what vibration it creates through looking at that. But then you get to the point where you're like, okay, now I'm writing the about me section. There's no way I can like where do I go to like who is Lindsay Schroeder and why should you work with her? Like I can't, yeah, I could type that into ChatGPT, but like I don't know what I'm gonna get from that. Like where that has to be from you. But you know those moments where you're sitting down and you've carved out the time and you're like, now what? Like that is a thing that can't be looked for, has to like be given to me, has those moments of like creative inspiration of like, ooh, what am I going to name that thing? Or like, how do I want to do that? How do I want to make that offer? Like, how do I want to show up in that way? Things that like can't really be studied for. Like there's no book that we can go to for that. There's no podcast we can listen to for that. We can be inspired in different ways, but then when it's the distillation and the integration of like, okay, taking all these pieces and making it my own, that is my favorite use of this practice of like when I am ready to be given the answer of like, it would be really great if I didn't have to like try for this for a week or a month or a year. It would be really great if it just like plopped right down into my lap. This practice of like getting into the quiet state of mind, clearing that channel, it's so helpful. I can't tell you how many times where I'm like, okay, I've written my content and I put it on Buffer and I go to put in it, like I lose it all. And I'm like, oh, that was so perfect. I should, and like, write it in a Google Doc and then put it in there. And I never listen. And I go into the thing and then technology short circuits because my vibration's so intense. And I'm in that moment of like, now I'm frustrated. Now I'm stressed. And I want what that felt like, but I'm not going to be able to write that same thing again. And I do this quick practice. And then all of a sudden I like get the essence of that, but then I get a better way to write it. And now when that happens, I know that that second version of it is actually what that ideal client needs or that person who's struggling needs. And now it's like this exciting moment of like, okay, do your little practice. And then it just flows through me. And a thing that used to be really hard that could knock me off of my path for the rest of my workday or just kind of like chip away at my fullness brings me up to a higher state. And like that is why I do this inner work, so that things that like could have been the most difficult, the hardest, the heaviest, or just annoying are no longer the problems that I used to see them as. Because when we start to work in quantum understanding, there is every different type of reality available for us. And it is me who shifts, not the situation that shifts.
That it is you that shifts, not the
Mhm.
situation that shifts. Because a
Yep.
lot of those things are out of our control, right? We can't change every situation on the planet for
The
every
only thing we can control right here.
yes. Oh,
Mhm.
that is powerful. So these techniques that you've been sharing with us, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are quantum shifts. Like I'm
Mhm.
feeling these are shifting your energy. This is
Yes.
shifting into something higher where you are tapped into um that more aligned embodied version of yourself.
Hmm.
So what is the difference between a shift and a leap then? Because we hear about quantum leaping as
Yeah.
well.
So quantum shifting, a lot of times for me, it can be like those little things. A little like, okay, I'm gonna vector here. A quantum leap for me is a much bigger jump. So if I'm talking shift, there's small shifts, big shifts, there's like a wide variety of shifts. There's a size for everyone, but a leap, anybody leaping is taking a bigger jump, a bigger step. So when we think quantum leap, I want you guys to think about those moments where you quit that job, you broke up with that partner, you got a new job, you moved into a new home, you decided, like, how many of us had that moment where we're like, okay, I am now a person who like cares about healthy food, and now it's like I'm starting to shift everything into organic, or like how was that cow treated, and like I am a person who cares about that now. That's a quantum shift, a quantum leap of like, oh, before it was just price and this, and now all of a sudden I am a different person. I care about this. Or those quantum leaps of like, I don't go to the gym and now I do go to the gym. That's a big difference. Not just like I took a class, but I am a gym goer. I like build my schedule around it. It's a priority for me. I consistently move my body versus like, oh, I'm trying out some movement. The leap is that you are a different version of self. The shift might be, oh, I'm going to take that class today because I'm having a dysregulated day. I'm going to go pop in for a yoga class versus I am a yoga person now. I consistently work with the practice of yoga. So when we make these big transitions, when we become a different version of us, and it's so easy for us to see this with like a job or a partner, or a space. When you quit one job and you start a different job, or you quit one job and you're like, what do I want to do now? I'm going to figure it out. You are a different person. Your schedule is different. Your energy is different. Your priorities are different. That's to me the definition of a quantum leap, of like one moment I was this and the next moment I was this. In our last conversation, I talked about one of my favorite quantum leaps where I had set the intention of like, all right, I'm really ready to step into my priestesshood in a bigger way. And I thought it was going to be like a 6 month, like, oh, we're going to start this. We're going to tell my mentor I'm ready to start this and this and that. And over the course of a weekend, I went from this is my intention to serendipitously, we needed me to step in and actually lead ceremony for a night. And all of a sudden, I went from like, I set the intention to like, start having a conversation with her about an apprentice program and how to be mentored in this way and how do I become this, to like, I am. And like that is a quantum leap of like not just, okay, I'm ready to start looking, but I became it. I embodied it. I held it and I continued it forward. And from that weekend forward, I was so much more identified and confident in my priestess self. Not just I'm working to become this or I facilitate this, but like I am this. And I started to develop more of my own programs, more of my own offerings, started to do much more one-on-one in that regard. Now, when I sit with my congregation, it's completely different. And like that weekend was a quantum leap. I went in, like got on a plane, one version, and when I came home, I was a different version of myself. And I could see it physically on me. I could see it energetically on me. And the choices that I made afterwards, I started dressing differently. Like it wasn't just like, ooh, let's like put something comfortable and cozy on. It was like, no, no, no. Like my priestess is more goddess likes. Like she cares. She wants like these beautiful things. I started getting ready more. I started oiling my body more. And they weren't like choices that I put together. That version of self was like, that's just who I am. And I just started doing them because I was it, a being, an embodiment versus just a choice. That's what we're aiming for when we're talking about developing the ability to quantum leap of like when you decide to be a different version of self, how to fully embody that and actually change timelines, align to the timeline where you already are that version of self and resonate there and be able to stay there.
I have chills all down my back right now because it is, we all have the capability of this.
Yes.
Like,
And we've all done it. We've all
yes.
done it. And that's a funny thing when I like to, I'm like, oh, you've done that before. And people are like, no, 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 I have no idea what quantum. And I'm like, but you have. So like, let's talk about it in like a very human 3D perspective of like, have you ever changed jobs? Have you ever changed partners? Did you leave your familial house to go live on quantum leaps of like, that took a big and you participated in that. Yes, I know a lot of them were supported by others or situationally or societally, like moving from high school to college is a big quantum leap of like you're a different version of self and like you have this availability to like remake yourself and like choose what pieces of that version of you you want to be and who you want to show up as and oh I'm going to sign up for something new or I'm going to try this or I'm going to go out on my own for the first time. Like those are quantum leaps. We've all done them. We all interact with the quantum field. We are all energy. But me helping you to like place that lens on it and go, wow, I have done that. So if I've done it before, that means I can do it again. It takes this unattainable magic and turns it into everyday magic. And that is one of the biggest aspects of my work. I am the opposite of the spiritual gatekeeper. There are so many spiritual teachers and leaders who are like, oh, if you don't know, like, oh, I can't even explain. I'm like, if you don't know, come here, let's talk about it. And I want to like Kristen Bell. Yes, it could be this massive, beautiful ritual that like you have no idea what I'm saying and as I'm naming the tools and the plants and the this and that, or it could be a meme. It could be both. And there's everything in between. And like magic is for you. Magic is for me. Magic is for everyone. And like we are already magic. You have magic inside yourself and you've created magic before. It's just maybe you've never thought about it that way. And once we change that perception a little bit, magic in general becomes available to you. And maybe we don't call it magic. Maybe we call it alchemy. Maybe we call it transformation. Maybe we call it transmutation. Maybe we call it just conscious creation of like before you were like tumbling into things and now you're choosing things consciously, intentionally creating things. That's all magic.
All magic.
All
And
magic.
it's always around us. It seems like this being able to quantum leap follows a decision,
Yes.
and it's so many quantum shifts that happen that lead up to the moment where you decide. I have found any time, I can think of a million of them, anytime that I've decided something like fully, like full body, okay, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything changes on the other side of it, right? Like when I think about when the moment that I decided to sell my first business, like I really, I felt it in my body, right? Like I purged through one of the deepest cries I've ever had in my life, right? Like it was
Yeah.
ready to shift. Oh, I just got chills thinking about it. And I called my husband into the office and I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to do this
Yeah.
anymore. And he was like, okay, what do we do next? And I tell you, within 24 hours of making that decision, things started to move in ways that
Mhm.
I could never have planned, orchestrated, or made calls about. Right. And some of those shifts were challenging, right? Because things have to go in its own time, but also the opportunities that I never even like thought of, just like plop down in my head,
Mhm.
right? All of a sudden I'm like, oh, I should send this email. Oh, maybe I should make a phone call. Oh, maybe I know exactly who I would absolutely adore to purchase my company. I made a phone call and we went to closing and it's hers now. You know what I mean? Like it,
Yeah.
you can't, again, you can't make this
Can't
shit
make it
up.
up.
But it
Yes.
came, all of that came from that decision.
Yes.
And it sounds like
Mhm.
even in your story too, you decided, you embodied that, and then everything opened after it.
Mhm. Because our external reality is just a reflection, just a projection, just a mirror of our internal reality. And so changing inside self changes outside self. So, like, you went from owning this business, doing it in this way, being pulled in multiple directions, to deciding, to choosing, to realigning your insides to, like, I'm going to sell this thing. You started to separate yourself from this thing. You started to, like a parent with a child going off to college, like, okay, I am a parent, but my child is not right here with me and they're graduating, they're going up. Like, that's okay, I'm ready for that. I'm ready for I'm starting to feel that. I'm starting to be that. I'm starting to identify with that. And then you start to vector yourself in this new direction, this new availability. With that decision, everything starts to align and the universe meets you in that alignment. And then when we are doing this in, like you are, this high vibration, this availability, this excitement, this following, this calling, things start to get so easy because that's the way that we understand we're on the aligned path. And alignment for me is like what we think and what we say and what we feel and what we are is like similar, same, in alignment of like, okay, what I'm saying I want is also what I'm thinking that I want, is also what I'm feeling that I want. Because we've all had those moments where I'm saying I want to do this thing and I don't want to do this thing. I'm saying a yes, but I mean no. And when we start to shift out of that and we get everything going in the same direction, and we are following this path of like our magnetic core or our calling or in alignment, things just start to, that's when those synchronicities happen, when you know what email to send, you know what call to make, and you like, and even when difficulty comes up, it doesn't stop you, it pivots you. And when we see roadblocks as divine, like, pivots of like, ooh, maybe I should go around that, or maybe I need to go over that, or maybe I need to go under that, or like this and that, when we see it as direction instead of like not for you, mm, that's when our experience shifts because it all starts inside the self.
Absolutely. You know, those things, they're inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Like those challenges are not going to go away. Those obstacles are not going to go away. But like you said earlier, it's the shift within you.
Yeah.
It's coming back up out of it, out of those thoughts, out of the worry, not
Mhm.
associating. Like the challenge does not equate to things are bad or wrong or you're in the wrong direction. It's just like, let me get curious about what is this saying to me? Where do I need to guide around, through, below, above this thing to continue
Yeah.
on my path? It doesn't have to mean anything.
I love that saying that is like the suffering is a choice. Like difficulty and hardship are a part of life, but suffering is not necessary. Suffering is a choice that like we make. And I love that because at a level of awareness, that is so true. But without that understanding, until you understand that that's a choice, it's not a choice. Like when it's happening to you and you don't have that support, that understanding, that expanse to get to the place of like, ooh, how I process this, how I perceive this, how I handle this, how I look at this, like the viewer changes the experience. And if we want to get super nerdy, like when a particle is observed, it behaves differently.
Hmm.
So we can apply that to our lives. Like, depending on what I am focusing on, my experience shifts. So if I focus on, like, oh my God, that's a roadblock and that's stopping me and I can't have what I want, maybe I'm not worthy, and like, then that is true. If that is your belief and that is the path that you're taking and the focus that you have. But if you learn to pull back and become the awareness of not identifying with the thought and going, oh, that's a thought that I'm having. What do I choose? Where do I want to focus? Okay, I've had other experiences where something's like stood in my way and it actually ended up being better. or I realized like that thing that I wanted wasn't what I wanted. It was a divine intervention. Could I see this as a possibility, as an availability, as a reroute? And when you start to do that inner work of like how, you create a different experience because it's all about you. It's all about you.
Yes. One of the things that I love most about this conversation today is the reminder that it gets to be easier,
Yeah.
that we have these tools. You don't have to go outside of yourself to do anything. You don't have to go buy anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to have the right pants, right?
Yep.
Like you have you. And in
You.
in in every moment you have you.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore you can tap into your own quantum.
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Lindsay, I could talk to you all day long and every day possible.
Me too.
I would love to make sure that everyone knows where to get in touch with you and what's going on in your world. So tell us all the goods.
Yeah, you guys can visit my Instagram. That's the main place where I'm most active. And my handle is Our and R, OurAndAre. I also have quite a few freebie ways for you to like interact with this work. So if you're curious after this, in my link in bio in my Instagram, and I'll give you the links, I have a guided more than meditation. So if you want to drop into an altered state of being and learn what it means to like build a ritual for yourself or like go into an altered state or start to receive those downloads or connect with your intuition, I have been told by many people that when they do this type of deep inward journey with me, they see more than they normally see, they hear more, they feel more, they get more, they have an experience. So if you're curious about what we're talking about when we say like these tools, these support pieces that are not outside yourself, like you can guide yourself in this own way, but sometimes it's really nice to have somebody else show you what it can be like and then go, oh, I would like to do it in this way or go to this place. So I have that one as an offering. I also think it's extremely important that we understand the difference between knowledge and being. And so another free offering that I have that I really encourage everybody to take advantage of is my 2-part embodiment practice that really teaches you how to get into the body and feel and be present. And the way that I teach this is unlike anybody else I've ever seen. I show you my personal embodiment practice, not just me leading one, but me doing my own weird embodiment practice. And I have a voiceover over it that's explaining like why I'm doing certain things. I'm like, it is real and raw. There's no lighting, there's no makeup. I'm in like my mom's big sweatshirt, like itching and moving around, and like it allows you to like get out of that state of like, oh, this is kind of weird and uncomfortable. When you see me do my weird embodiment practice, you're like, okay, like I'll look less weird than that. Like it'll be cool. And then the second part is guided. So I'll guide you through an embodiment practice. But if you need to peek open and see me doing weird stuff to encourage yourself to follow through on that, I have found that this embodiment practice can really shift people's understanding of the difference between knowing something and being something. And that is how we change our experience. We can all know so much. There's so much information that your mind knows that your body and your energy do not have integrated. And breaking it down in this way into an embodiment practice to really make that understandable, it's a good one. So those are all in my link in bio. I have a membership that you guys can come into that offers over 10 spiritual programs that you can go at your own pace. I'll help you figure out where to start and what to go. And then you can join me for 2 live events every month. And until the end of the year, it's at a certain price, then it's going to be up for next year. So you guys are welcome to come and check in with that. I also host regular masterminds, group coaching programs, and then my absolute favorite, my creme de la creme offering. If you want to figure out how to do this work for yourself, not just understand the big topic and then distill it down, if you would like me to support you in understanding exactly how your intuition speaks to you, how you get where you want to go, how you consciously create the life, the business, the relationships of your absolute dreams, how you get to make it a little bit easier and have all the things that you desire with less resistance, with more enjoyment and more fun, more Kristen Bell. I have private coaching offerings. I only take on a few clients at a time because I am truly very dedicated to you, and it is a whole experience. So come on over to the gram. Let me know that you listened to this episode. Let's chit chat. I would love to share which references and which options would be great for you.
Amazing. We'll make sure we put those links in the show notes as well. And Lindsay, I know I asked you this first time a couple of years ago on our first episode, but I would love to know again, what does the word gutsy mean to you?
Mm. For me, gutsy now means the allowance of it all that I desire. Because it's so easy for us to make those like comfortable choices and to settle. And gutsy to me is having the willingness, the excitement, that feeling inside yourself of like, if I desire it, it desires me, and I get to have it. I get to do it. I get to be it. And having the guts to go for it, having the guts to say it, having the guts to make an action, having the guts to tell someone else about it, to, for a lot of us solopreneurs, tell the internet about it, identify who we are and what we have and our magic, and aligning with it, like truly embodying it, standing behind it, and taking those intentional risks. That's what gutsy means to me. Intentional risk taking, because our human world has taught us that like what we want is like out there and is too much and like is maybe not for everybody. But like when you really think about it, when you really connect with it, it's for each of us, but it takes a little bit of guts.
Absolutely, it does. Uh, I love sharing space with you. Thank you for your wisdom and your guidance and your beauty. Like you're just a beautiful human and soul. And thank you for the magic
Mhm.
that you put into this world.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your platform and allowing new ears to get some of this information. Because I know there's so many people listening to this podcast that come for the practical recommendations and maybe haven't tapped into the intuitive. But I'm hoping some of you might feel those little tingles, might get a couple hairs standing up going like, huh, what could that do for my life experience? And not, oh, I'm going to change everything and turn into like this super woo woo person, but like, what's the one thing or five things or little thing that I could take that could make a quantum leap for me?
Hmm. Amazing. Gosh, doesn't Lindsay just have you just wanting to quantum jump your ass through everything? I mean, it's so beautiful because it's so simple, right? It doesn't have to be this big scientific explanation Ant-Man thing, right? It's literally as simple as tuning in and listening. And part of listening is building awareness, and building awareness is part of the Mindfuckery workshop. The waiting list is open and it's ready for you. All you got to do is go to lauraora.com, enter your name and your email, and I'm going to send you all kinds of goodness so that you can be the first to grab your fucking seat. If you have questions about the workshop, if you want to talk about today's episode, or you just want to fucking say hello, come find me on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram. You can find me using @thatlauraora. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.